Hello, everyone. Today we are going to dive into the topic of standards. Each year, new courses of study are released where new standards need to be reassociated with courses and old standards need to be taken off. In fact, we just had that to occur with the ELA standards. So I've received a lot of emails that said, "Hey, Stacy, I've got the ELA 15 standards and I need the ELA 21 standards. How do I get them on the courses for my teachers?" Well, first, let's look at where the standards live inside of PowerSchool. When you're at district office, under Setup in District, you scroll down to the grading area. Inside of the grading area, we see standards and list standards. This is where you'll see any standards architecture that's been pushed into your PowerSchool system, or it could be standards you self-create or upload through imports. In this example here, I have two different sets of standards that I've been working with. One of them is from the Alabama Course of Study that the State Department pushes down through its enterprise controller mechanism. And then I have some standards that were self-created for the individual school district, because you can add additional standards in here or use standards with different wordings if you choose to within your districts. So I want to look at the Alabama Course of Study standards and show the 2015 and the 2021 English Language Arts standards. And here you'll see we have the ELA 2015 inactive and the ELA 2021. It's real important to look at the identifier. That's going to be this AL.ELA21, because the identifier mechanism and how they are built out will help you understand how to search for and how to manipulate the standards to turn them on and off in the teacher's gradebook. So in the example that I have a teacher's gradebook that I'm going to pull up right here. And when I go into her English Language Arts Power Teacher Pro and go to Grading and Standards, I see I have the old ELA 15 standards that need to come off of there, because it's almost time to put our final markings on here for report cards for first quarter, so we want to swap them out to the 21 standards. So I'm going to minimize this and show you the easiest way to do this inside of PowerSchool. Now, you could click in here and go through every one of the standards. So let's just say I'm going to take one of these parent standards and go all the way to the child standards. Each standard within here has all of this information attached to it. Sort order, is it active? Do you want to grade it? Can they score it? Can they comment on it? And what course is it attached to? Basically, what we want to do is go in here and en masse take all of those 15 standards for all of the courses they're associated with K-12, because we don't want to use the 15 standards anymore, and inactivate them. Make sure they've been taken off of the courses that they have been associated with. So what is the easiest way to do it without clicking into every standard from this flyout window? Well, the easiest way that I have found is through importing and exporting. There's two ways you could go about it. You could actually export out the entire standards file, manipulate the CSV spreadsheet, import it back in, or this is actually one of the tables that you can edit within Data Export Manager if you have the correct security settings. So not everyone in the district will have edit capabilities to Data Export Manager, because it gives you the option to change tables en masse. Great things when needed and understood, scary when not so much, and bad things are pressed that shouldn't be pressed. So that's why a lot of restrictions are placed on security around this. But if you do have Data Export Manager edit security, here's how you can quickly swap these standards over for your district. So when I choose my category, I'm going to come down here to PowerSchool Datasets, and I want to scroll down to Standards District List, and that's the table we were just looking at in the flyout window. So I'm going to choose all of the column headers here, click Next, and then I'm going to start filtering and sorting on this. Now, one thing to know about standards is that every year when we do end of year rollover, PowerSchool kind of takes a copy of all of your active standards and pushes them into the next school year. So when you're searching and manipulating standards, you really need to make sure that you look at the year ID, because you want to make sure you're changing it in the correct, and in this case, current year. So in this year, our year ID is 32. I would not want to change these standards for year 31 because we want them as they were for last year because we have grades on those. So the first thing I'm going to do is come to this filter columns area and click on this little plus. I can actually come to the one that was already here and do year ID equals 32. So that means I'm going to look at this year's standards. But then I want to, and the reason I hit plus is also choose a secondary search filter on the identifier, because that identifier is really going to be what you use to go back and forth with. And I don't want to say equals, but I want to say contains. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find all of those ELA 15 standards. So this is going to be all of my standards K-12. And I'm going to say show records. So as you can see, I have 57,000 standards across all of the years that I have used standards inside of PowerSchool. For this specific school year of 32, there's 1,900 of them. And what I want to do is to inactivate these standards. So notice that if I have Data Export Manager with edit capabilities, I get two things here. I get little pencils where I could actually click on the pencil and I get that same flyout that I saw in the actual grading area of the district office, and I can change them one at a time. Or I can edit all filtered records. So whatever I do, I can do in mass to all 1,973 of these records. So if I wanted to turn off all ELA 15 standards across all classes that I have, I would click Edit All Filtered Records. Now, when you're doing a mass edit on these, and it says pick the field that you want to update for these 1,973 records, you can only do one field at a time. So if I wanted to make it inactive and blank out the primary courses, I'm going to have to do 2 passes of this. Also, pay attention to the note at the top of this page. It says this function will permanently modify your database. As we know with DDA and other mass updates group functions, it's going to be a change in the database. So only do it if you know exactly what you're doing, and always be very cautious. Submitting a blank text value will clear out any existing values for the field. So in other words, for example, I want to make these inactive. So the one that I get is called is active. And basically I get a checkbox to say, is it active or is it not? If I don't want it to be active, or if I want to blank out the primary courses because they have primary courses attached, then I'm just going to leave it blank and it's going to clear out the existing values for the field. So keep in mind that you putting data in is what it will do a mass change to, but if you're wanting to clear it out, you just leave it blank and hit submit. So if I want to make all of the ELA inactive, I'm going to choose the is active, leave that checkbox blank, and hit submit. And now, didn't take very long, if I look over in this is active field, they're all zeros. Remember, our zeros and ones in PowerSchool are checkboxes being checked and unchecked. So a 0 is an unchecked box. So that should right there have taken off those standards associated with that course. If I wanted to see if any primary courses have been assigned any of these standards and I want to clear them off, I can do a secondary push, edit all filtered records, come down here to primary courses, leave this blank so I know if any course had been associated with it and I want to remove it. I can hit submit. And sometimes when you're doing large amounts of data like that, you'll get that page is not responding, and just keep hitting wait until it clears out. And then I'll see that everything has been removed from the courses as I needed. Just to show you, if I now go back into that teacher's grade book, remember I had all the 15 standards on there. If I hit refresh, the standards are no longer on this grade book. So now I need to go grab the ELA 21 standards and push them to grade 1. So I'm going to go now and search for the identifier ELA 21 and hit show records. Now this is where it's real important to know the architecture of these identifiers. So with them you have the subject, so ELA, this is year 21, and this is grade level, and then you have dot, and then you start getting to the individual standard numbers and their ABCD. So I am doing a first grade ELA class. So what I need to make sure that I do is that I search appropriately only for first grade. So noticing that it's got a dot after the 21 and then the grade level, I'm going to do dot and then a 1 up here in the identifier contains box. And I'm going to say show records. And I get 351 records. Now, I've got to be very careful because inside of these are also going to be, and if I were to scroll through some of them, would be any grade level that contains a 1 at the beginning, such as grade 10, 11, 12. And I do not want to attach those to grade level 1. So what I would do is, noticing that there's a dot after that, I would put a dot here, show records, and now I have driven it all the way down to just my 126 actual first grade standards. And so I would want to make sure, and again, I've got the subject area English Language Arts, I want to turn these on for my first grade ELA class. So you just have to play around with which one of these standards you want to turn on, you want to turn off. And if there are certain ones that you want on and you want certain subgroups of them to be included or not included, again, you just keep filtering so that if you don't want certain ones to show up for the teachers to grade, you just turn that subset of them off. They are completely able to be configured however you want to for your district. So in math, the first thing I want to do is make them active. So then I'm going to choose the is active checkbox and radio button and submit. So all 126 are now active. And then the next thing I want to do is associate them with that exact course number. So I would have to have that first grade course number. So here is English Language Arts grade 1 course number. I just copied it, so I'm going to paste it. So I'm going to go edit all field records again. I'm going to go to primary courses and paste that in there. If you wanted to associate it with multiple courses, you would just do a comma and keep pasting in those course numbers. So I'm going to hit submit. And now we will see that they are active and it's now associated with that primary course number. So let's again jump back over in the teacher's gradebook, hit the refresh. And sure enough, I see my standards here, and I can see exactly what they are. As I scroll through here, up here it's got the naming of them. I've got my standards-based grade scale that I have set up, which in this case is a 3, a 2, a 1, so that I could then begin doing whatever I needed to for my students. So 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, just putting some numbers in there to show you how those would be entered inside of there. Now, if you're at the very beginning and saying, well, Stacey, I have not set up a grade scale yet, how would I then get a grade scale assigned to it? And how do I make sure that it is actually one that's can be graded and not one that is just one for looks, that because it might be a parent standard, not one of the child standards, and you don't want those parent standards to actually be graded upon. You only want the child standards, however you want to think about it. All of these different headers give you the information to think about on these different standards. So first is grade scale. So I want to look at this. There's this column called grade scale DCID. I'm going to pop open another tab and show you where that number comes from, so that if maybe you are changing grade scales, like in this case I'm doing a 3-2-1, maybe we decided to go to a 4-3-2-1 or SNU, how would I change all those to the correct one, or where would I even find that at? So here under district office, again under grading, is where you see your grade scales. When you create your different grade scales here, they're assigned to DCID, which is labeled here. In my case, my primary base grade scale is this 223, and that is why you see 223 in this column right here. So if you had a different grade scale, or you have never set one to a grade scale and you needed to, you would just need to go find that number in the grade scale at district office, and then again do an edit all filtered records to the grade scale 223. Is the assignment allowed? So in other words, do you want the teacher to be able to grade it? So maybe let's just take a look at this reoccurring standards. Here is where you can kind of cherry pick them if you want to. If you don't want them to go through and do a grade on this reoccurring standard, that you really only want grades on the actual standards that we're going to code on, then you can go and turn those off simply by clicking into those individual ones and going, okay, this is not one that I really want them to grade. Maybe it's just an overarching name, and hit submit. And so that will bring that one off of the teacher's gradebook list. Also, comments. Is a comment allowed? And that's going to be over here in this one. Is comment included? Because sometimes you want teachers to put in comments on them, but maybe not on every single standard. Think about a standards-based report card. Having 126 standards is a lot. So having 126 comments on top of that would make it even longer. So maybe you don't want them to put a comment on every individual standard, but maybe you want it on an overarching standard like ELA altogether and just put one big comment. You can decide the ones you want to have comments by, again, doing an edit all filtered records and making that either checked or not checked, or doing it on the individual one. So if I just wanted to go back to, let's see if I can find the one here that I might want to put an overarching one on. Maybe I just want this one to be, the big ones like vocabulary. I want it to have a comment, but not to be graded. So, because vocabulary would have subsets of standards over them, so I don't want it to be graded with a 3-2-1, but if they want to put a comment on the entire set of vocabulary standards, then we'll allow that for the teacher. And so now when I go to the teacher's gradebook, let's see if I can find that vocabulary one. Let me refresh it first. Yes, I want to reload. And when I scroll through, let's see if we can find it. Probably picked one that is at the very back of it, but that's okay. There we go. So do you see here, it looks a little different where it's got a little bubble box up here, and up here it says comment only. So when I'm in Tyler's grade box right here, I can't put a grade in on it, but I can enter a comment. So if I wanted to say, great job in vocabulary, or modifications allow, or any of those that your district requires, then you could actually do those type of things and save. So that's the kind of flexibility that you have within standards, and how you can quickly get standards off of courses and new standards onto courses. So hopefully that helps to demystify the standards that are pushed in from the state, and how you can associate and disassociate them with your teacher's gradebooks so that you can send home an appropriate standards-based report card. Hope this helps.